Live from Lamert Park, KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising. I'm your host, James Farr. I want to thank you so much for allowing me into your living rooms, into your dining rooms. You might be in your kitchen, you're in the backyard, you're in your garage, you may be riding in your car for your weekend activities. Thank you for allowing me into your space this morning. This is the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation the January 7th Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, that deadly blaze that has now claimed a reported 18 lives and an untold number of thousands of residents have been displaced. Before we get started with today's program, let me invite you to follow us on social media at KBLA 1580. You can also follow me at James Farr Live. Our podcasts are available wherever you get your podcasts, or you can go visit us over on the KBLA 1580 YouTube page. I want to also invite you to download our app in the app stores, KBLA 1580. We have a full program for you today, and I'm excited about some of our guests. You know, we're looking at now coming up on 100 days since this deadly fire has devastated the community. I'm excited to have the bottom of the hour Catherine Peoples with HPP Cares, as well as House. She's an expert. We're going to talk about rebuilding. We're going to talk about how do you build on the site where there's so much toxic contaminants in the soil, and the things that you need to be considerate of when you're, preparing and planning. And maybe some folks want ADU. So Catherine will be in the seat, but in the top of the hour, former assembly person of the 41st District, Chris Holden. Chris is now the chief executive officer of LA Cares, a law firm that is representing folks right here in the Altadena community. And they've been pretty active with some of the things that they're bringing to the community and how they're endeavoring to guide people. Typically, we play some sound on the show. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit. Every morning, when walking is just like such an important part of my wellness. It helps me center myself. It helps me ground myself. I enjoy taking long, long walks. And why am I sharing that with you? Well, when I'm out on my morning walk, me and the dog, we see every day the power lines that are owned by Southern California Edison. In fact, the dog park in my neighborhood and in my community, it literally sits under these power lines. And so when I think about people who have been greatly affected by this fire, this inferno, the burning question for me is, how are they still processing? I mean, folks have moved away right now. They're settling where they are. I was asked yesterday in an interview, well, where are people? And I'm like, they are where they can be, and they're not where they want to be. And so people are everywhere. But for me, I didn't lose my home. I still have my home. Had a little bit of wind damage. But for me, every morning, I look up at these power lines. And when we talk about proximity to trauma, when we talk about like vicarious trauma, right? To me, it looks like a loaded gun that killed your family. And so while people are listening and kind of understanding what we're doing in this community and how people are having to process it, I watched a 60-minute interview, I think it was this past Sunday, which, I might add, they didn't profile anybody African American, but I do remember the woman from Palisades, saying that she was different in that, people would say to her how lucky she is that her home survived. And she I understand what she was saying, that yes, her home is there, but what's around it? And so when I think about people who are still in the community that still have to see these power lines, right? And how that may bring upon more trauma. I talked with a community member the other day, and she too can see those power lines. She lost her business, the Little Red Hen. Sister Barbara Shea was sharing with me. It's still emotional, and we're nearly 100 days out. So I just want to share that with you. Kind of, that's my facts. No cap in that. But when we come forward, we're going to be joined by, as I said earlier, former assembly person of the 41st District. He's a former city council member. He actually wrote a lot of the legislation that should have put in place some resources, relief, and some protections. Chris Holden is going to be in the seat live in studio. Make sure you stick around and stay with us when we come forward, only on KBLA, Talk 1580, Unapologetically Black.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
And welcome forward. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising. I'm your host, James Farr. Whew, man, this is a good one. I'm excited to have in studio. He is actually my former state assembly person of the 41st District. He's also been a Pasadena city council member. Some of my LA folks in the LA delegation will certainly know his father. But, in addition to just being a great guy, family man, his wife Melanie is a good person in our community, and you see all of his children around. But I want to welcome Chris Holden into the seat, who is the CEO of the Los Angeles Fire Justice. Is it agency firm?
It's a collaborative.
It's a collaborative. Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's pull that mic up a little bit closer to you, Chris.
Yeah. No, I say it's a collaborative, and thank you. First of all, James, thank you for inviting me to be here. I know both of us, we share deep roots in the Pasadena Altadena community, and this is, deep pain that we're all trying to work through. And so I appreciate you giving me some space to chat.
Absolutely. We'll unpack a lot of that. So, I was scratching my head last night and this morning because, I know you as an assembly person. I know you as a city council member and all the other things, a husband, former mayor of Pasadena, all these things. And so I'm like, how do I address you now? Because in the community, it's just, hey, Chris,
Right.
So, formally, it would be an honorable or assembly member or council. So
if it were necessary to put a moniker on that, I'd say probably honorable, but or former assembly member. But Chris works better.
Chris works better?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, growing up in Pasadena, you were, I hear, a pretty outstanding basketball player. In fact, you shared the court with Showtime, Mr. Michael Cooper, right?
He was always just a little bit ahead of me.
A little bit?
He was 4 years ahead of me in high school. He graduated Pasadena High School, and so I came in as a freshman as he was moving on to PCC and then eventually to University of New Mexico. I ended up at San Diego State in the same conference as University of New Mexico with the WAC. But he was moving on to the Lakers. So I was just a few steps behind Michael the whole way, but a legend in the Pasadena area, and as now we know, a Hall of Famer, but just a great person.
Who was better, you or Cooper?
Since I'm sitting here, I would say me, but since I didn't have the kind of career he did, I think everybody knows different.
Pasadena, and Altadena, right? I mean, we tie in Altadena, obviously, because that's why we're here. That's also the assembly district that you represented. But, Pasadena High was right in the fire's direct path. I mean, walking distance.
Yes.
Stones throw away.
Yes.
What's coming up for you when you think about, when your first time you had a chance to go back and visit the area, as a civilian now,
right.
you didn't necessarily have the highway patrol escorting you. You were just Chris. What was Chris seeing? What were your first thoughts when you went into the most impacted areas?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. clearly, the first time I had a chance to see Lake Avenue and the business corridor, and to see off of Mendocino the town and country club where so many of the community would come together for various events celebrating birthday parties and anniversaries and things of that nature, and seeing it completely destroyed. Landmarks that you kind of become familiar with in terms of how to navigate, streets that just, neighborhoods that just merged into rubble on top of rubble. And so you're always struggling to get your directions in terms of navigating through the area. But I was seeing neighborhoods and communities where people that I knew, who I even played basketball with in elementary school as well as middle school and high school, where their families had been for generations and were part of the generational passing along of real property. It just blows you away. It's hard to explain. I did, as chair of Utility and Energy, have a chance to tour Paradise with the governor, and you could see the devastation that these wildfires can have on a community. But when you know the people who live there, you have your own personal experiences, having been to Loma Alta Park and the neighborhoods around
Farnsworth and everything. What's something that people don't know about Altadena, and like what makes it so special? I've been talking about the roots, the resilience, the rebuilding process, and the reunion, right? But what's special about the community that people outside of the area just don't know?
Well, I would say there are a lot of things, but what comes to mind is last night I was at an event and it had give me an opportunity to sort of describe what I experienced, as you just asked the question, when I first saw the Lake Avenue area, and there was a distribution event that Rotary was involved in. And as I walked through the parking lot of the grocery outlet there on North Lake, and I saw the people from Altadena who were victims of a fire serving their neighbors who were victims of the fire. That to me becomes the essence of Altadena, the spirit of Altadena, the care and the brotherhood and the fact that everybody really knows each other. Just by and large, everybody knows somebody who knows somebody, and it's that kind of a community, and they step up. And even through their own pain, they serve.
Well, they know you. I mean, because I've been there in the community when people weren't happy with maybe some of the things you did in the legislature, and they let you know. Yeah,
thank God it was just a few times. But to your point, yeah, I mean, that's what family does, right? We love what you're doing, or we got some questions about what you're doing, and we have a conversation, and sometimes I reshape their thinking and sometimes they mine. But at the end of the day, it's a family, and it is one where it is made up of so many different communities, whether it's the African-American community and the history that they represent in Altadena, the Latino community, there's Armenian, there's LGBTQ, there's all these different types of communities that have come together.
It's America. I mean, while we're this show, we're centering blackness, right?
Yeah.
We are unapologetically black on this station.
Yeah.
And so, that's the lens that we're approaching this from. I want to go up to Sacramento with you now. Like, you spent some time in Sacramento, and people may think that the governor can do this, the governor can do that.
Right.
What lessons have you learned from the time you spent in Sacramento? As you mentioned, you toured Paradise with him. I want to get into some of the legislation that you passed and authored and co-authored and whatnot, and what that means. But what is the role of Sacramento now that you're not up there anymore and you can speak? Well, you always spoke freely, but what's the role?
Well, I mean, I think it's amplified because we are probably in a time now where we're not going to get as much support from the federal government as we had in the past.
You think?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Timing is everything, as they say. But I do think that the legislature took an important first step several months ago, right after the fire itself, if you will, where they augmented the budget to make $2.5 billion available in the recovery space. But that's also looking at it from the standpoint of a fiscal year. I will say this, that there's a lot of attention that Sacramento is paying on the impact that this fire has had on Altadena. And I think for many members, they realize that they could very easily have the same thing happen in Ventura County or Central Valley or Northern California or even San Diego. So I think there's an understanding that with climate change, things are changing in terms of how we have to prepare and how we have to respond. So and I'm very...
I want you to walk me through AB, was it 1054?
Yeah.
So like in a very elementary way, right? Like what was the purpose of the bill? You know, we look at fire funds and, you know, legislation that is supposed to put these utility lines underground. Like that's what people don't, at least that's what they're telling me. I don't understand. I thought there were laws to protect us. Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, I think what happened is that when you start to see how these utilities, investor-owned utilities like PG&E, Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, as they are moving forward and delivering power throughout the state to 80% of the Californians that receive power from those three utilities, there is increased risk given the fact that we're seeing the climate change, the drought conditions. So fires are becoming not just wildfires, but catastrophic wildfires. PG&E moving into 2017, found themselves being liable for a number of fires that put them in the position where they had to move into a bankrupt status. Well, they're the largest utility.
I mean, it was bankrupt, but they just passed that cost back on to their customers. Like, but I guess where we're trying to go with this, Chris, is like it was supposed to set aside money, right?
Well,
where's the money going? Like, how does that work?
Well, two things. One, it's to stabilize the markets, because if you don't create a pathway for that utility to get out of bankruptcy, which the fund did do, but they had to then settle with those victims of that fire in order to, and then get out of bankruptcy to have access to the fund. And so through that fund, that is where the shareholders of these utilities put $10.5 billion to create the fund. It's a $21 billion fund. The shareholders put in $10.5 billion, which has never happened before. And then the ratepayers already had a charge that was in place since the deregulation era. And so we just extended that, not a new charge, but extending an existing charge. And that comes up with the other $10.5 billion. Currently, there's approximately $14 billion in the fund. And that is available, for, this utility, Edison, to be able to draw upon. And we believe that their equipment started the fire, but they also have to, before they can even have access to that fund, they have to put up another $1 billion before they can even have access to the fund. And we believe the fund is solvent and strong and durable, which the folks of Altadena would have at their disposal in terms of a mass tort lawsuit, which causes PG&E, Edison to step up and then have the ability to make these families whole through that fund.
What does accountability look like for, now your former constituents and you as your impact, because our community is impacted? What does it look like? Should Edison be criminally charged? I mean, what is LA fire justice? What are you pushing for?
Well, I think what we're pushing for is to make sure that they're accountable for and be responsible for their equipment starting the fire.
But what does that look like, though? I'm talking about
they're negligent in terms of the fact that we believe, because you had two energized towers next to a dormant tower. That dormant tower has been dormant since the 70s. So about 51 years it's been sitting there with no use to it other than the potential to start a fire. Rather than deactivate those two towers, they did not. There was a surge of power into the deactivated tower, which then activated it, caused the lines to then energize the ground and create a spark, and that's where the fire began. We have videos to show that. That's out there. A lot of people have already seen that. And so from that standpoint, the question then becomes, were they grossly negligent? Did they, and that's hard to prove, but that basically saying that they
you say grossly, like we see the video, right?
Yeah.
We see the timeline.
Right.
I've seen some of the modeling and kind of 3D animation and how the fire spread. The towers heated up to a certain temperature and poof, there's the maintenance fire lines that they were supposed to maintain. So how do we end up with, are they grossly negligent? Or, because, I've always said this, at some point, highly paid executives and elected officials one day may have to do their, I can't say that word, but they may have to do their job, right? So how do we end up on January 7th where someone didn't do their job? 18 people are dead. Thousands of people are displaced. Thousands of homes are destroyed. How does that happen? Like, where's the accountability?
Yeah, the accountability is through the wildfire mitigation plans that they are supposed to do every year and that the CPUC checks off on. That's from undergrounding, hardening the equipment, weather technology, which everybody knew that there were going to be strong force winds that day. So that allows them to then shut down the power if they need to. They did not do that. And ultimately, it's for a court to decide in terms of whether they were just negligent or grossly negligent. There will obviously be an argument being made that they're grossly negligent. Now, in these lawsuits, like anything else, if they decide they want to settle, then folks will figure out what the right number is. And at the end of the day, it's to make sure that our community members who were impacted by this fire are made whole.
As promised, Catherine Peoples is in the seat. Now, she's been boots on the ground, getting her heels and nails dirty. She works with people in terms of building ADUs. Folks may be familiar with her through HPP, and we'll get into more of that as well as house. But she knows a little bit about soil remediation, debris cleanup, and kind of just what this process looks like for folks who are putting things together. And, you know, that was Kenny Burke on the Keep Rising to the Top. And I want to send that message out to our community in Altadena. Catherine, welcome. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You just sitting here like you know everything. So there's so many questions I want to ask you real quick. But first, I think the most important thing I want people to understand are those three things that they need to be looking at when they're rebuilding on a toxic site, right? This fire devastated, right? What are those first three things that someone should be aware of?
Well, they first and foremost need to understand how they're going to pay for it, as I would say. You know, what does your account look like?
That's important.
And what's the insurance going to play games with or not play games with? So you want to be prepared to, put your fighting gloves on to ensure that you are getting what you are duly deserved from the insurance company. That's number one. If there happens to be a mortgage on the property, you want to make sure that you are set up with all the appropriate forbearances. There's a bill right now, AB 238, that's on the floor. That's in process to help families impacted to ensure that they don't have to make mortgage payments and get forbearances accordingly without interest.
For people listening, a forbearance is not a forgiveness. That just means it puts the payment back on the back end of the loan, right?
Well, with the particular bill that's on the floor, they're looking to ensure that interest does not accrue, it doesn't impact the credit, and then there isn't any type of back end payments. It's just a pause for a longer duration than the normal 30 to 90 days that's being put on the floor for folks right now.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm sorry. You were on to your third point.
And then on to my third point is just making sure you align yourself with the appropriate people who are going to do right by you, ensure that your soil is, I don't want to say palatable, but is in the condition that needs to be so that you can go ahead and start to rebuild. So those are the key components.
Let's talk about that. I mean, because soil remediation is a thing, right? It's something that people are talking about. They're recommending 6 inches to dig. Is that enough? I mean...
To be honest with you, no. I honestly think they need to take it a little bit deeper. At least another 6 inches. So I think a total of 12 is what should be done. And then you should have the appropriate outside testing done. You shouldn't rely on just someone saying, okay, it's good to go. You need to have the additional testing done.
So let me go back. So some of the homes have about 1,000, I think, have actually had debris cleaned up to date, right? There's thousands more that have to go. But going through that process, so they have to first explain that to me, like tear down the houses, like what does that look like? So
they have to first remove all the debris from the property and have that properly pushed off-site, and that's moved by, the appropriate haulers, 40-foot yard containers. And then in turn, they're going to bring in the earth movers and move the a level of dirt and put it in the proper haulers and get that out. But then you need to bring in outside testing. UCLA is offering that. Our organization is partnered with a couple other environmental testing groups that are also coming out to do the additional testing to ensure that the land is ready for rebuild.
So my understanding is, after talking with some folks that are in a similar space as you, is that at some point we should see a completely flat and leveled Altadena before building begins?
Totally.
Wow.
Definitely. We should.
I'm really trying to imagine, absent the trees, right, what that will look like, right, looking up at the mountainside. So what's the concern if there isn't enough remediation?
If there's not enough remediation, we are going to have a lot of people that are going to get sick. And we are not going to see what we need to see with the rebuild. As I stressed to you earlier, we need to make sure that Altadena is treated just like the Palisades. And for those of you who are listening, because this is a national network, that is the other area that was impacted by the fires. And having been at the disaster resource centers from day one, when they were opened, it was a tale of two different cities. Mm-hmm. You saw people within the areas of UCLA, because that was where one resource center was located, that were not of communities of color, where in turn they had all the resources immediately. DMV, birth certificates, you name it. Whereas in Altadena, it was slow trickle to get those resources to the community.
So your organization, how do you help people with the debris removal, the planning, the grading, rebuilding, the ADUs?
Definitely.
What does that look like?
So what you would do is call HPP Cares, our organization, and we would do a feasibility test to look at your entire project on the nonprofit side, because I represent two organizations. HPP Cares is our nonprofit HUD housing counseling agency. Mm-hmm. And then we have our construction piece. We've married the two, but we've broken out the resources between the two organizations. But they would reach out to our agency. We then get the address. We go to the tax assessor's office to see if there's any architectural plans. And then we set up having the work being done, the remediation work, the cleanup. We put in line the groups to come in and remove the debris, getting it to the appropriate locations.
HUD is important, right? And you're certified. You have certain certifications.
Yes.
Why is that important for like someone to choose working with you versus, Joe's hauling?
Well, first and foremost, we've been in business for 20 years with that designation. We have certified housing counselors who are in turn understand this work, understand what it takes to get you from A to Z with a rebuild. Why is that? Because we managed ADU construction, well over 3,000 projects throughout the state of California. So you want to align yourself with an organization that is not just gimme money, but in turn is being self-funded through federal programs to offset costs to help consumers who are uninsured or underinsured.
How can people get in touch with you if they're looking to learn more about you, engage you?
Definitely.
I know you outside in the community, right?
Outside all day, every day, getting that tan.
How do they get in touch with you?
Definitely. It's area code 562-281-8861 is our phone number. Again, 562-281-8861. If you go to our website, hppcares.org, and that's hppcares.org, you can find our guidebook that will take you through the necessary steps: insurance, finding permanent housing, dealing with contractors, and figuring out those pieces. So that's how they would get a hold of us.
Should people be afraid right now, like going through this process?
They need to be cautiously careful. We have a lot of people who claim to live and have grown up in Altadena. I am a true Altadenian.
Right.
John B. was the ex-boyfriend, so shout out to John B.
They don't know.
They don't know. Hey.
I'm still down.
Okay. So with that said, you got to get aligned with the right folks. HPP Cares has had our headquarters in Long Beach. We are now on Lincoln at the NATHA Center, 2019 NATHA.
Yeah.
So we're bringing it home, bringing it full circle to make sure folks are rebuilding.
My guest has been Catherine Peoples. She is with Housed and HPP Cares. You can find her online if you need some information about soil remediation and just this whole process.
Thank you for listening to Altadena After the Fire. If you found this episode meaningful, please share it to help spread awareness. To support those affected by the Eaton fire, consider donating to the Brotherhood Crusade's Wildfire Relief Fund at brotherhoodcrusade.org. Your contributions provide essential resources like food, medicine, and housing assistance to families in need. If you have updated information or a first-hand story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Contact details are in the show notes. Altadena After the Fire is an Urban One podcast. Executive producer and host, Colby Tyner. Assistant producer, Jahi Whitehead. Director of podcasting, Dre Smith. Special thanks to the Urban One Cares team and our founder, Kathy Hughes. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.